Based on the famous open world RPG series, The Elder Scrolls Online opens a different chapter that already made fans divided, as gamers alike. ZeniMax takes it where Bethesda did not dare and is taking the risk while it opens the game to a wider audience. Will it be worth it, and how does it work with already established series? Let's find out. The first impressions of the game weren't very nice. The launcher itself is one of the worst I have experienced so far, and it lacks some basic options like close the launcher when the game starts. The beginning of the game itself is still one of its main weaknesses. Not that I will rage on Cold Harbor, how linear, closed and dull it was. No, I think it's fairly well done. The art design is great and it has everything one level should. If someone thinks that was done poorly, I'd say go check out Solkarin in Dragonborn DLC. However, it is game design that failed and is bound to fail. You simply cannot put all the players that entered the game in the same starting area and expect it to go smoothly. Whoever thought this was a great idea obviously had a lot of moon sugar. Still, that is how the story begins. 1000 years before the events in Skyrim, in the age of the Second Era, the Adric prince Molag Bal has successfully started merging his own realm of Cold Harbor with the plane of Mundus where our mortals live. Awakened by the drums of war, the three alliances were born to fight for the capital's throne and the Tamriel itself. Aldmeri Dominion, led by High Elves, along with Wood Elves and Khajiit under the banner of an eagle. Daggerfall Covenant, consisting of Redguard, Bretons, and the Orcs under the banner of a lion. And last but not least, under the banner of a dragon comes Turbulent and Fiery Ebonheart Pack, powered by Nords, Argonians, and the Dark Elves. Despite all that, the actual player does not have an influence to the world and the story like, for example, in Morrowind, where he was chosen to be a reincarnation of a long-gone hero who in the end saved Morrowind and succeeded where Tribunal did not. Oblivion, where he was famous hero of Kvatch and champion of Cyrodiil, the first one to close the gates of Oblivion and found the Emperor's heir that ended the Oblivion crisis. Or the famous last Dragonborn, who stood in the midst of chaos as the one who saved the whole Tamriel from devastating, vengeful return of the tyrannical dragons in Skyrim. Even if you get the title of the Emperor in the Elder Scrolls Online, you're bound to be overthrown eventually, and the next to be sharing the same fate. This is the history that is yet to be written in the lore, however only to be questioned, changed, or even erased in future by following event known as Dragonbreak. Because we all know, in history there is only one man that conquered the Ruby Throne for good, and that's Talos Stormcrown, better known as Tiber Septim. Now, for all those who claim that this can be done because of the MMO genre, there is for a fact Star Wars The Old Republic, where your character had codename that entered in lore history for good, along with everything you've done in your adventures. There is a good saying in my country that goes, "Sve se može kad se hoće," or you can accomplish everything, but if you want it bad enough. For the start, the look of the races is worse than in Skyrim, but far better than in Oblivion. I'd say overall look is still great, especially for an MMO, and there is still tons of options to choose from the character creation. It's just that look of the orcs is less unique and more like humans with fangs. The Nords look generic overall and lack more variety, facial hair part especially. High and Wood Elves are somehow too similar, easy to mix, and Khajiit could really use more patterns. Still, the details, expressions and excellent voice acting makes a race feel alive and not just another dull creature you will ignore while following your quest mark. Characters are believable and engaging. They urge you to get involved in their story while not being annoying and irritating.
There is nothing you could possibly say that would interest me. Begone, Netchfart.
Of course, they don't actually live in the world like in Oblivion, but they add up to the illusion at least. They can be active in quests, some even join you for a while, helping in battles or aiding by giving you some items. There was one moment where I was helping one character and felt really protective of her, hoping she doesn't get hurt, and that is something.
No time to talk. We have to stop the summoning ritual.
That being said, the same goes for quests, which are great. All of them are heavily story-driven, and most of them pretty interesting. Among them, there is tons of variety, which gives us good old classic Elder Scrolls feeling. Some of them are very unpredictable, some of them you discover by accident, some of them even drag you in the manner of, "This looks really cool, I hope there's some quest here," or even send a character to you in great emergency.
Please, I need your help.
There are a lot of things going on, and sometimes you have choices to make, so you really need to think about what you're doing. Also, the hidden treasure quests are back, and what is best about them, they only give you clues on how to find them, but not exact locations, which takes us back to good old Morrowind days. The so-called fetch quests, if there are any, are set to minimum and mostly got some stories wrapped around them anyway. So one time, even when it was like, go there, do that, come back, I was able to learn something about history of Dunmers and Argonians, for example. For that, every Elder Scrolls fan should proclamate, "That's what I'm talking about."
And the ashlands bubble with hope. I pass now down the river to swim in the currents of Aetherius. Go well in your own passage, traveler.
Plus, the backtracking in some quests has been fixed and removed. Do note, however, that only one quest could be active at a time.
Iskramo's air indeed. Thank you, my friend. Damn their hides, yes!
Quest rewards, though, are only revealed when you complete quests and receive them, which has its charm, but in the long run is pretty daunting when you don't know what the hell are you fighting for. The dialogues in the game are using individual interface, although the same pattern becomes tiresome after a certain amount of time. Still, they're nicely done. The navigation is also like some combination of older games. You have paper-style maps like in Oblivion, and the compass navigation straight from Skyrim, but done a lot better this time. It's great, and I'll gladly take that over clumsy MMO minimaps every day. The quest markers are a little different than in classic Elder Scrolls games, and in fact colored the opposite way, as in for example Oblivion, where the dark areas of the map were explored and the bright ones unexplored.
Good, good. I know we'll be drawing blades together soon enough. Now, what can I tell you?
The interface itself is something that I believe got Elder Scrolls fans right on the first sight. It's minimalistic, very Skyrim-like, and nothing like seen in MMOs, which is great, and perfect for immersion in the game. Sure, it will not appeal to power players and veterans of the genre, which are used to look at tons of stats, icons and numbers, but still it's a welcoming change, although it has its flaws. Also, unlike in most MMOs, in Elder Scrolls Online there is no experience count shown. Instead you get XP for whatever you do, ending quests, finding things in locations, or fighting enemies. Comparing to the rest of the experience, the players level up the first 2 levels pretty quick, and that's a great thing. It gives you the opportunity to strategize and think about where those points shall be put and how to play the rest of the game.
Floors that don't sway, sand that creeps into boots, bugs the size of anchors. May the gods see me posted to a proper ship.
The exploration in the game is, well, very limited for Elder Scrolls fans, but somewhat surprising and rich for MMO players considering all other MMO titles. You can actually just go wandering around and make your own adventures, but not for long because some quest will catch up to you sooner or later. Same thing goes for the level of interactivity. Fans of the series could be little disappointed not being able to pick up whatever they see and touch, but on the other hand, there are still a lot of things that manage to compensate for shortcomings. For example, only one book can be read from the bookshelf and cannot be picked up. However, all books are listed in journals, so there is something more to it after all. This could be especially interesting for other non-Elder Scrolls MMO players in general. The hope lies in fact that ZeniMax is constantly working on improving the interactivity between the world and the player, So a few days ago it became possible to get a weapon from the place which was untouchable before. But still, I honestly doubt that this feature will be fully implemented since it is important for the game to stay balanced.
I can never decide. The market has so many choices.
Oh, a customer. Can I help you choose something from our selection of fine woodcraft? Please. Sorry, I'm so excited. It's my first day.
I don't know about you, but for me, the economy system in this game, just like real payment methods, has gone to hell. Mainly the amount of gold you receive by finding or defeating things is one lousy single gold coin, and you won't find anything to buy for less than minimal of 300 to 400 gold, which is a real mood killer right from the start. To top this up, even most of the stuff you find in the game does not have any selling value and are mainly crafting items which forces you into crafting even if you don't want to, and even that's not done nearly good or rewarding as it should have been. The third person is obviously the default perspective which ZeniMax has planned for the game to be played in, which is really a shame for all the fans. Sure, later on they've included first person, but still it just doesn't work and feel right. It's not really bad, but it screams with the word unfinished, and various glitches are more than often, even when FPS count is high. The controls are not nearly as responsive as we would like them to be. Our character sometimes, or even often depending on how unfortunate you are, doesn't do what we expect him to do, and if he does it's either delayed or missing some sound or animation. It's simply not enjoyable much, and that is a shame. The good thing in battles is that the enemy does not automatically lock on to the first player that attacks it, but to all who engage it. So if you've picked the wrong badass to mess with, you could drag him around for a while until some other players comes to the rescue. However, this doesn't apply for monsters associated with quests as well as quest items. So if the place of interest is crowded, you literally have to wait for your chance for the item or monster to respawn in order to get to it quickly before someone else jumps at it again. Once I got stuck like that for more than an hour just watching people messing around with my quest goals when I furiously left the game. There are many things like that are the cursed features every MMO is doomed to have. The enemies often are respawning too quickly, forcing you to stick longer than you should to a location. The real-time threats are here even when you are in menus, logs, inventories, etc. They can easily kill you, and you can't even search or take your items while battle mode is active. If you try to sneak and get some stealth action in the dungeons, there is a great possibility that someone will literally kill your fun by running past you and alert all the enemies that surround you. Other big annoyances are lots of people just trolling and taking all the loot in front of your eyes, or stupid naked players jumping around and killing any attempt of immersion in the game. Yeah, that's what you get when you let your game to be amusement park to people who are not here for actual world and story. This reminds me of incredibly tasteless Skyrim mods containing colorful puffy animals, Final Fantasy-like characters, etc. Interaction with other players is little tricky using the offered option wheel, and some things are really missing, like at least some basic overview of the player you're interacting with, his abilities, equipment, and so on. Thankfully, there are some things here that are done better. For example, the game lets players on lower levels to respawn on the same place, making it little more forgiving due to beginner mistakes. Also, what's cool in battles is that there is no cooldowns for abilities, and if your special actions are interrupted during a battle, your stamina and ability are not wasted. Instead, they're restarted for you to use again right away. However, the weapons in the game, while sure can be enchanted and useful, they can become much less important once you gather your set of skills. So, spamming effective abilities quickly becomes standard method, which makes the combat stale and boring. And for one Elder Scrolls game, that is a damn shame. Skill and class system isn't as open or intuitive as in Skyrim, or as complex as in Oblivion, but that is understandable. On the other side, it is one of the most flexible ones when it comes to building your characters in MMOs. There are 4 main classes to choose from, but they don't limit you much, so if you want to be a sorcerer wearing heavy armor and a mace, just go for it. All classes can still be focused on all different types of armor, weapons, spells and abilities, so this is really appreciated and one of the best things in the game.
Get moving, please.
Fortunately, the graphics and the art style stayed pretty much faithful to the classic Elder Scrolls, with normal color range and textures, sharp details, somewhat realistic lighting, and that is great, down to earth and believable. This is one of the most important things to a fan, and I'm so glad they made it right, because on the other hand you have Star Wars: The Old Republic with graphics so cartoony and simple it simply ruins the experience and immersion in the game, and if you are any kind of fan, it's probably one of the most important things for you too. Of course, it's not better than Skyrim. Hell, sometimes things aren't even better than in Oblivion, but it's different and something in between those two. Everything is combined with latest technology, which gives us a unique look that is very good by normal standards and great by MMO standards. Since the world is so huge, of course you'll find some deserts and empty places, but for the most part the environment is pretty much filled with details, unique locations, and because of it, exploration sometimes looks even more tempting and interesting than it actually is. So even during long walks from location to location, many times it seems shorter than usual. Most people got that kind of impression from starting areas, and among all of them, I found Strass McKay and Stonefalls to stand out the most, while Kenarthy's Roost and Oredon are a bit less interesting but still very nice, and Coal Harbor and Betnik being somehow uninteresting and much less appealing. So it's no wonder why many people have different opinions. The main flaws with the graphics are mainly visible in first person, and from that perspective the game needs a lot of sharpening and polishing to be as satisfying as a single-player Elder Scrolls game, especially the weapons, which lack intricate details like in previous games.
Barely contain its hunger.
Lord's command and we obey, over the seas and far away. A sailor lives a happy life.
Sound is pretty decent, although there is much room left for improvement. The songs in the soundtrack are obviously mixed themes from older games, but that is nothing new to all Elder Scrolls players. However, the atmosphere in the game is a little off. If you threw out main themes and that one or two bard songs, there really wouldn't be much that would immerse you in terms of audio, and that combined with some other weak points is what gives many players feeling that they're not playing an Elder Scrolls game. No matter how beautiful the soundtrack is, hearing the same tune over and over again is starting to get annoying. On the other hand, the voice acting is great. The secondary characters feel alive too, and even they put Star Wars: The Old Republic main ones to shame.
When they asked Raelgar Stonecrush to help defend the town, he accused us of being fancy. I assume that's an insult in Skyrim. Also, I think he was drunk.
Overall, the balance in the game feels really off. Of course, the diversity between characters is great and welcomed, but often two characters in the same class, level and race mean two different experiences that really are not that. One gets rich by getting all full containers, while the other gets poor for getting almost all of them empty. Some things really should be less randomized and adjusted to individual players after all, so better phasing and instancing should be one of the main priorities in the future. Speaking about balance, the beta was pretty unstable and for many of us real bugfest, as you can see in our previous video named Bug Report. Things weren't any better for those who got early access either, and just on the launch day, things started getting into place, providing much better and stable experience, although there are still some quests that cannot be completed, falling into the ground, stuck into walls, disappearing NPCs. Yeah, you get the picture. It's not very nice, but it's still a lot better than in the past.
The daggers are cowards. They attack the weak and hide behind tricks. These soldiers thought I was a defenseless farmer. I've corrected that error.
I didn't play enough PvP to get more on it, but to me it looks more like world versus world than an actual PvP mode. At this point, the game doesn't look like it has influence on other games in terms of decreasing player numbers. Star Wars The Old Republic has double XP weekend and even more active players than usual. Guild Wars 2 has dropped the game price by 50%, and those who still haven't given up on World of Warcraft are looking forward to the new expansion.
Keep moving.
You don't look like you belong here. You don't say. All right.
Although at the start game looks and sounds like Elder Scrolls, as you get into it more and more, it doesn't really feel that way anymore. This is especially obvious when you start doing your typical MMO routines, which you will start doing eventually in one way or another. Despite ZeniMax's efforts to get it as close as possible to a classic Elder Scrolls experience, in the end it does come short and shallow in terms of interactivity, richness, and actual freedom and variety by a lot.
It was chaos. Pure chaos.
Yes, this isn't a game made by Bethesda nor it looks like one, but I'd be damned if I didn't say that it's not good or fun when it feels like one. In some cases, it's even great, bringing some slight improvements to Elder Scrolls series and some to MMO genre in general, but still it doesn't do enough impact to change things around. Attention to details is present in ZeniMax Studios too. They have a good potential and it deserves to be recognized. Once I accidentally draw a weapon in front of usually non-reactive High Elf guard and she responded, "Nice weapon, but do you know how to use it?" Things like that made me smile instantly.
Yes? Hmm?
If it only weren't for those game-breaking issues like the Bugfest we had a chance to experience, gameplay being kinda dull and going full retard due to any form of minimal latency or lag, tons of stupid situations and limitations made by typical MMO game design and, in the end, fully corporate money-grabbing payment model that simply goes against gaming in general. Especially when we see how unfinished the actual game is. From the infamous Imperial aka Douchebag Edition, which is already sold out, making my faith in humanity lost once again, over to Any Race, Any Alliance, Mara Rings, Soul Gems, which are two lore-breaking features, to so-called first free month, which is really not free by any means when you gotta buy the whole game, which is overpriced even by itself. Some of those things, just like early DLCs, overpriced demos, etc., are simply unacceptable. Before you know it, other video game companies will start doing the same thing. What's next? Charging for the patches? Well, when I think of it, that's what a good portion of your monthly sub fee goes to anyway. Fan or not, there is no way to justify this practice. That being said, I myself too won't be paying for it longer, because I simply can't stand for it, and this is my final take on the game.
Thank you for getting my men out of there.
So yeah, there is lots of things this game made right, but also many things it got wrong. It is lots of fun when it works right, but none of it when you're out of luck, sync, and money. Although it offers a lot of content, it does feel like stretched thin, and that's why you don't see anyone saying, "Oh my god dude, you gotta play this game, it's so awesome." This is a big letdown for me. For a price of $70 plus $250 a year, you have the right to expect a great game, polished to the last and ready for launch. When they release it and start charging like that, there is no room for excuses anymore. After so many months of beta testing and 7 years of development, excuse me if I expected a complete game. So no, it's not the perfect Elder Scrolls game as we would like it to be, not even by far, but it's a fun ride for those who are lucky enough and who can afford it. All being said, in the end, it's either too expensive for what it has to offer or too weak to justify the price. Pick one. Sometimes it's still better to revisit older games and find some new things in them to be hyped about while waiting for a proper sequel, being it either a patched Elder Scrolls Online with added content or the Elder Scrolls 6 that should give us the whole thing in one standard box as it used to be. Just like some famous Game of the Year editions or other MMOs, the Elder Scrolls Online would be best to pick up 1 year after release or so, when it's more complete, better and stable experience. Until the next adventures, thank you for watching and see you later.